Mia Westberg had dressed meticulously for her husband Alastair Lafayette's funeral. She wore a black silk jersey underdress that hugged her slim frame. A lace overlay softened the sweetheart neckline and brushed her knees in a sheer, scalloped hem. She added a lariat necklace of black diamonds and put her blonde hair up, pinning a puff of black mesh to the wispy braid coronet. She finished with a pair of simple diamond halo onyx studs and slim-heeled ankle boots over sheer black tights. Alastair would have appreciated the ensemble. He'd chosen the dress himself from Lafayette Fashion's new Fall Eternity collection. Knowing his heart condition was worsening, he joked that she should wear it before it went out of season. It was dark humor, but that had been his way. Now Mia and 300 other mourners were assembled in St. Catherine's Cathedral, off Wilshire Boulevard. Mia was on the aisle of the front right-hand pew with Alastair's adult children. Henry and Hannah separating her from his ex-wife, Teresa. None of the trio had looked her way. No surprise there. Henry and Hannah had just turned 25. Mia was 27, and they'd never forgiven her for that. The mayor was speaking at the pulpit. His remarks were supposed to be brief, making way for Joseph Mackenzie to deliver the eulogy. Joseph was head of the California Fashion Design Council and a longtime friend of Alastair's. He sat across the aisle from Mia right now, note cards in hand, obviously holding back tears. Mia's emotions were more complicated. She'd loved Alastair for the 9 years of their marriage, and 50 was far too young for him to die. But she knew what nobody else did. Alastair's heart condition had made this moment inevitable. It had grown worse over the past 6 months, causing him intolerable pain and becoming more and more difficult to hide. But he was a proud and private man, and he'd wanted to keep his health a secret right up to the end. Mia couldn't help but be happy that he'd succeeded. Her husband had lived a gifted life and died on his own terms. The mayor, who clearly enjoyed the sound of his own voice reverberating from the redwood rafters of the beautifully gilded cathedral, finally ended his speech. People shifted, and a few coughed or whispered as the mayor left the pulpit. Joseph rose and stepped across the aisle to give Mia's shoulder a comforting squeeze. She sent him an encouraging smile. Unlike the mayor, Joseph wasn't a fan of public speaking. But he did both himself and Alastair proud. His voice broke over a few heartfelt passages, and he paused twice to blow his nose. He brought some humor in at the end, and Mia chuckled along with everyone else at the story of Lafayette Fashion's first overseas show. It was long before her time, but anything that could have gone wrong did, and Alastair had eventually seen the humor. "Did you see that?" Mia heard someone whisper behind her. "Easy to tell she's not so broken-hearted," someone else whispered back. Henry looked over at Mia then. Well, glared, really. But she levelly met his gaze. It was no secret that he and Hannah considered her a gold digger. After reading Alastair's will, they were more convinced of it than ever. As Alastair had predicted, they'd already contested the will in court. Teresa daintily dabbed her eyes with a lace-edged hanky, while Hannah squeezed her mother's hand in a show of support. But having heard Alastair's side of the divorce, and having watched Teresa's behavior over the past 9 years, Mia knew it was all for show. If Teresa was broken up about anything, it was the lack of an inheritance. Joseph ended with a heartfelt farewell to Alastair. The priest led the congregation in a prayer, then in a hymn, where half the people knew the words and half the people obviously didn't. Mia was in the half who didn't. And then everyone rose as the pallbearers escorted the casket down the aisle. "She couldn't be bothered to shed a tear," Mia heard the voice behind her again. She could have turned to see who'd uttered the words, but it didn't matter. She lifted her chin, squared her shoulders, and fixed her expression, pretending she was on a runway in New York City. It was Alastair who'd fostered the ice princess persona for Mia's modeling career. He'd want her to carry it off today, of all days. He'd be sorely disappointed in her if she turned into a blubbering mess. And it wasn't that kind of a send-off. She was proud of Alastair, and he needed her to be strong. They'd often talked about the future. What would happen when she was left to manage things alone? It was time now for her to carry on.